Hello, everyone, and welcome to our day early comic review show. I'm Jason,
I'm Andy.
and we're with Infinity Flux Comics out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. Every Monday, after our store has received the comics and we've bagged and boarded them, Andy and I divide them up, we read them, and we do what we call our spoiler light comic review. We're going to tell you all the major first appearances, the reasons that you might want to buy these comics for spec purposes. But more than that, we're going to tell you a little bit more about what the content is, particularly with the number ones. You know, if you go in your comic store, it's going to be a lot of new number ones every single week. We want you to know which ones most appeal to you. So this is a bit of a small week this week. And on top of that, our DC order got delayed. Good news is we get a lot of preview copies of things, so we still got to read most of it. We're going to show the screen for the DC, but we will be showing many other comics. We're going to show their variants and their incentives. So let's begin.
Yeah, starting off with one, it really takes me back because I remember reading the original Planet Hulk and loving that series. Well, we have a follow up like Marvel has been doing lately, kind of taking stories that are in and around the time frame of big events. You know, they did that with Venom Lethal Protectors and everything like that. Well, we are returning to the world of Planet Hulk with
A little in the future, though.
but a little in the future, yeah, more in title with this one. But this is Planet Hulk Worldbreaker number one. I believe this is only a 5 issue miniseries,
Yep.
but it's written by your Planet Hulk writer Greg Pak, and the art is done by Manuel Garcia. And this is really cool. I kind of forgot getting into this how much I enjoyed the Sakaar stuff. You know, this is post MCU Sakaar. And before, you know, it's a whole different landscape. Everything now feels way more familiar with all of that. But this takes place 1,000 years in the future on Sakaar. And the Green Scar, who was the Hulk, who rose up in the gladiatorial combat there and kind of led a rebellion and just had a big thing there. Now he's kind of talked about in myth and legend. Was this a real person? What did he actually do? He's kind of got this like larger than life legend that goes along with him. And once again, Sakaar needs help, and we follow a young girl and her brother. Let's see, uh, ba-
Taylor or something.
Balo and Taylor, and they have green skin. They are called Harg, Haarg, and they are kind of the outcast species now that are seen as kind of associated with the Green Scar. And so this priestess who now rules the planet has, shunned them, and they're all on the run. Everybody who has the green skin. And so to kind of save the planet, everything, Thala and her brother are out seeking the Green Scar, or if he was such a big legend, he must still be around. And but they get caught, and her brother gets taken, and now there's only one person she knows to go and find. And I'm not going to give away who it is. There is someone that is called Holku, the Eye of Anger, and it is a kind of a recluse that has green skin that lives kind of in a cave out there. But it might not be who you think it is. But that still doesn't mean that the original Green Scar isn't out there. And so this is a mission to get her brother back and kind of save the planet once again. So there are numerous first appearances in this one, the brother and sister. I even think from there's an upcoming cover that has like a She-Hulk looking character, but I almost wonder if that's going to be Tala kind of unleashing her Hulk power on that. But the other thing is there is a backup story that does involve She-Hulk and Scar, son of Hulk, that takes place in the modern day because Hulk is out in space doing all of that. And Scar is basically upset with him, being like, he said he would never leave me, and now I can't find him. And She-Hulk kind of has to uh, work with him and mentor him because there are some crazy Hulk-like creatures out there that they're going to have to team up to take on. I'm not sure if that's going to continue or if this was like a little one-shot story because it kind of had a ending to it. But overall, I thought this was really fun. They set up a great mystery. There's a final page reveal on the first one that still makes you wonder who's all going to be involved in this. And I think when people read it, they're going to be pleasantly surprised with maybe who is the Hulk on the cover. You see, this is it looks like Gladiator Hulk. I think this one may even be Gladiator Hulk, but there is a Hulk in this book, so it is not Hulkless. I really enjoyed it. This
So
is
it sounds like a known character who has survived all these years.
survived 1,000 years,
Hmm.
and that is all discussed. How is that possible, and all of that, and really, really cool. So this is the A cover. Then we have the Kamenkoli variant with Scar, and then we have the U variant. And I guess this would be the first, unless they're on the A cover, which I don't think they are. Um, your first cover appearance of the brother and sister down there, and that mysterious Hulk. It's not a super big mystery, but I want people to discover it like I did because that's the fun of it.
Okay, so I read Avengers Assemble Alpha. This is sort of the beginning of the end of this huge era of Avengers books written by Jason Aaron. Most art done by Brian Hitch. They're the team in this book. This is, of course, what they've been doing is bringing together all these Avengers across different eras. Like we're talking all the way back with 1 million BC Avengers. And so this is sort of the beginning of the battles that's going to sort of end everything with this story. Not everything, everything. So in this issue, Mephisto goes up against Avenger Alpha. He's sort of the embodiment of all the Avengers put together into one character. But as they're fighting each other, Mephisto, of course, has plans within plans. He manages to pull off something where the Avengers of 1 million BC fight the modern day Avengers, and that's one of the best parts of the book. They really go at it. There's some like real hatred moments between them because of what Mephisto has kind of tricked them into. And if that's not enough for you, by the end of the book, the new multiversal Masters of Evil show up, the team for Mephisto, and it's not quite the team you've seen before. It's like one of those moments where they all get their
Mm-hmm.
name, and some of them are mashup characters. So it's a very fast-paced, brutal fighting book. You could tell like everything's sort of coming to a
Mm-hmm.
climax, starting with this Avengers Assemble Alpha. This will be continued in the next issue of Avengers, by the way.
So it's just it's not a symbol is not like a 6-part series called Avengers Assemble. It's like
It,
going between.
it's going between titles. Yeah,
Okay.
it's got the Alpha, and then it's going between the other Avenger titles, and then it'll probably end with an Omega.
The bookend version of an
Correct.
event.
So as far as variants, we have this J. Scott Campbell variant.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's not too common. He draws so many characters
Yeah.
on one thing. He likes to focus on one or two
Is that an
usually.
homage to number 4, Avengers 4 with Captain America?
With them discovering the ice, I'm not
I know
sure.
he's kind of doing that move on the cover of it.
Right. Yeah, it may be a bit of one of those. Then here is the La Roca variant to that issue as well.
Next up, we've got a new Star Wars number 1. This is Star Wars The High Republic Adventures number 1. So, yes, we have had Star Wars High Republic Adventures number 1 before. That was back at IDW. Now it's at Dark Horse. And this time it is a limited series rather than an ongoing. I imagine when this one ends, there'll probably be another one. And just kind of how they do that now with the miniseries. But this one is really cool. So, this is written by Daniel Jose Older, who is one of the architects of High Republic and on the story group at Star Wars, so pretty high up. The art is by Tony Bruno, and this follows Sav Maligan, this character on the cover. Now, the interesting part about her is her first appearance is actually in uh, High Republic number 8 from IDW book, but you see her when she's older and she's on the same planet as like Maz Kanata and all of that, where she's like this stoic, almost samurai like. Well, you get to find out her backstory in this. And this is chock full of first appearances and cameos and all of that. So I'll go over a little bit of that. Uh, she's a a youngling Padawan who doesn't necessarily love the Jedi Order, and so at night she sneaks out of the temple and goes to Maz Kanata's castle bar that you see in Force Awakens to just hear stories of high adventure that different pirates come through and tell. And this castle is basically like everyone's allowed to drink here, um, just no fighting. Like you could have people from you know what we'll see later, pirates and pirate hunters, but they both go there, and it's kind of a no mess zone. So it's really fun, and there is we meet some of the crew because Maz Kanata is like the pirate queen. We meet some of her crew, which includes Alec, Quiet Shand, uh, character who I'm not sure if he appeared in the comic before, but he is in the movie Therm Scissor Punch, which is the best character name. He's just like a lobster with big claw hands. We have uh, Coromont Vizzle, and one night a much beloved character. I'll tell you, Dexter Jester, who from Star Wars Episode Two. This is in his suave younger days, where he's got a beautiful mustache. Comes in and he goes around the galaxy and collects stories and tells them and everything. All of that, he comes there and Sav finds out that there might be some pirate hunters on there. They team up, and we'll have to see what happens next. But it looks like Sav is going to join the crew of a pirate adventure going forward. So if you like the adventure, swashbuckling, uh, ragtag crew of characters, this is great. So a bunch of first appearances, all of those that I mentioned. Um, and you get the first appearance of Raf, RAF, uh, Inspector Raff, who is a pirate hunter that's got a very distinct look too. So a lot of fun in this one. I know a lot of places aren't reporting on how many first appearances there are, but there is a two-page spread with them all sitting around that gives you their name and a little description of like their personality. So very cool. And this one is easy to get because there's only one cover for this. It's Star Wars High Republic Adventures #1.
Okay, so the next book I read is Plush #1. This is a new Sick and Demented miniseries with some humor to it by the team that brought you Vinyl, and before that they brought you Plastic, which is Doug Wagner and Daniel Hilliard. So they're going through all the different fabrics in their sick, twisted, comical stories. So in this one, it is about a man who has a lot of drama going on in his life. He is about to get married, but he finds out, not at the altar, this is before the altar at least, that his wife has been cheating on him and she's pregnant with another man's child. But her father is the sheriff of the town, and he wants the marriage to happen because this kid happens to have a lot of connections. His family's rich. The sheriff wants to run for political office, so he doesn't care that this has happened. He's going to kind of push him to do it anyhow. Well, to get over all this drama, our main character's friend takes him out on a night on the town. But his way of having fun is he's a part of a furry group where they dress up like animals and they all meet and just kind of rub up against each other. I don't know what furries do other than the dressing up. And so he goes there, he gets roofied, and he just has this crazy experience where he bumbles into a room where just a few of the furries, not all of them necessarily, but a few of them are cannibalizing a human. So I know that sounds weird. Now, how does all this connect? I don't know. You're gonna have to wait for issue #2, but I'm getting the idea that maybe the furries are gonna help him out of his real life drama situation. But I mean, it's that kind of weird, sick story that Doug Wagner and Daniel Hilliard have told
Mm-hmm.
in the other books. This is definitely a progression of the stories that they have told. Not that
Mm-hmm.
they're connected, but it's just their style.
Yeah.
So if you like plastic, you like vinyl, here's your next dose. Plush #1 comes out this Wednesday, and we've got some variants for it. Here is the Fleets variant. No dogs on there though.
Nope.
And then this one's really good. This is the Lotte variant. What a furry looks like after cannibalism that they've been a part of course.
Okay. Next up, I have a book that I've thoroughly enjoyed, and I feel like I just need to keep talking about it. This is Exterminators #3, the miniseries by Lee Williams, and I won't go into too much detail about this issue, but this is the most adult uh probably Marvel book that's coming out right now, since they don't have like the Marvel Max line still going. But once again, this is incredibly fun with Boom Boom and Dazzler and Jubilee and Laura Kinney, Wolverine, as they go up against vampires, go up against some pretty big cosmic threat by the end of this that you don't realize till you get to what all they're dealing with. But just the notes, they're still recounting the story to the Quiet Council on Krakoa, where Professor X is very uncomfortable with their story, which is very funny. He basically tells them, skip the details because I can't handle the details. Um, but I will say there is dialogue that replaces a word with the peach emoji, which you can probably guess, and uh, Boom Boom finds out she can shoot her powers from other places than her hands, and uh, I then put how is Marvel letting this book get published? But it is so much fun. We've gotten so many subscribers after the fact for this book because they hear how over the top it is. It's very funny. I feel like it's almost like Deadpool level, like over the top, like not like goofy, but just like insane, like goings on and that kind of thing. So
Marvel After Dark.
yes, that's essentially what it is. But very fun issue, and we also have this great David Nakayama cover. So yep, this one also begins with the parental warning giant label that just tells you like all the craziness that's going to happen in it.
Okay, so I read Strange Academy Finals issue number 2. This is the second issue to the new ongoing Strange Academy series. This is written by Scotty Young with art by Humberto Ramos, your original Strange Academy team, who of course is continuing on this series. So if you were on the first one, you might want to ask your store to put you on this series. Because with the same finals, it sounds like a mini series, but
Yeah.
this is ongoing. I mean, I assume it'll end at some point, but I don't think it's going to end at issue number 6. Um, so in this issue, so in the previous issue, Zoe got into a fight with Emily Bright, and the two of them were on sort of the kids who left the school. Some of the kids stayed in the school, some of them left and started their own place. Well, they're with the kids that left. They got in a fight, and so this issue, Zoe actually rejoins the school with some of the people that come back with her. So you'll have to see how that goes down. It's her and Doyle Dormammu meeting up again. So for those of you who've been reading, there's been a lot of problems between those two, as close as they were. So you'll get to see what happens when they meet again. But what this issue is about, two things. One is it is time to clean up the school. After all the battles that happened at the end of last semester, it's up to the kids to have to clean up the messes that have grown out of all the magical, just, stuff that went down. The second thing is Zoe is very concerned with Calvin. That is the student that got kicked out last semester who fell in with Gaslamp. And to be able to get him back, her and some other students are going to maybe have to go up against and try to trick Gaslamp. Well, you'll have to read to see how that works out. So that's what's going on in Strange Academy Finals number 2. Just as good as the original Strange Academy. I mean, who knew Scotty Young would be such a good writer, too?
Yeah.
So I really like the pacing of his stuff, the dialogue. He's able to juggle multiple characters. Just too much talent in one person. So here is the variants. We have the Baldian variant, and then we have the Weaver trading card variant with Emily Bright on there.
The scariest thing you said for everybody who's in college is finals are ongoing. No, it must end. Okay, so next up I have Star Wars Darth Vader #29. This is cool. The timing of this, even though it's not like explicitly said, we've got Star Wars Revelations that came out last week, and what was kind of set up in that, especially right in the beginning, with all of the Vader stuff and Sabe. This you now can see after reading that when this issue goes on, the seeds that were planted in that we saw that maybe Sabe is really going to the dark side, is really working for the Empire. We saw in that she got this like suit of armor, and everything. Well, in this, we get a little bit more of that, and maybe even the first glimpse of an early version of that armor. So I'm very fascinated by this because clearly this takes place between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Something's going to happen to her along the way, but for right now, she is very much rising in the ranks in the Empire, and Vader seems to really like her and think that she could be an asset. So very interesting there. Um, there is there's some very interesting. Well, when there's all the handmaidens and they all look similar, maybe you don't know who's actually who. That's a pretty fun part in this. This also features the first appearance of Jewel Tambar. This I feel like deep Star Wars nerd lore thing, but Wat Tambor is a character that was part of the Separatists during Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, and this is his great grandson. Now, there's places being like it's first appearance and everything. It is, but don't hold your breath that he's gonna stay around too long. Uh, Basically, anybody who comes across Vader, don't expect them to stay around if he has anything to do with it. So, very fun issue. Continues to be just one of the most fun series coming out. And then here is the Clark variant, which is beautiful. I love all of these. These could be boosters.
All right, so finally it's here. I felt this one got kind of delayed, I believe.
Yeah.
This is Briar issue number 2, by writer Christopher Cantwell, with art by Germán Garcia. And if you liked issue number 1, I think this one is even better. You know, issue 1 had to introduce you to the characters, and it was more like a world introduction. In this one, you have, of course, Briar Rose and her companion. They're going through this fantasy world, but this is hundreds of years into the future from when Briar was put to sleep. However, she has so much knowledge of the past. You know, I mean, back when she was a princess, she had all these connections. So, you know, this is really old knowledge, but it still becomes very useful knowledge in this issue. Um, Also, they meet a coven of bog witches, and there's a young bog witch who is looks like she's going to join their group. So, her first appearance is in this. And lastly, while this is all going on, there's a pretty terrifying enemy that is sort of hot on their tails and they don't even know it yet. So that's what's going on in Briar issue number 2. It has that same fantasy style art that number 1 did. This is a very, I would say, dialogue heavy book, though. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's not one that you just can charge through and it's just the art. There's a lot of dialogue between the characters. So if you like that in a book, that there's that as well. So a lot of good covers for this. We've got the Franny variant, which might be one of the Bog Witches. Here is the Piquette variant. We have the Lotte variant number 1 with the darkened face. But then it's the same one, but this is variant number 2 by Lotte, where it's lit up.
Hmm. It's an
Then
interesting choice.
Yeah, there is a one per store Garcia variant. Of course, Garcia is our interior artist. We're selling to our customers for $10. Then there is a Virgin variant. This is the one. Oh, I'm sorry, the last one was a one per store. This is the 1 in 10 Virgin variant of the Piquette. We're also selling for $10. And of course, there's also a 1 in 25 Virgin variant of that Franny cover that we're selling to our customers for $25.
And real quick, I think for my last physical one, I just wanted to show off Star Wars Visions. Number one, I mean, it's just a one shot, but number one has gone to a second printing. So this book was hot when it came out. I mean, this did not last a day on our shelves.
Yep.
But everyone who read it was like, this art is incredible. This is so cool. people trying to add the series to their pull list, even though it was a one shot. So if you missed out on Star Wars Visions, number one, definitely go and pick up the second printing. It is just for the beautiful art. I think this is part of a two-page spread. Let's see, is this wraparound? Unfortunately, this is not wraparound because this is from a two-page spread that is just incredible. So check it out if you've not read Star Wars Visions.
Okay, my last physical one before we get to all the DC that should have arrived, most of which we read, so
Yeah.
we can still review it. It is Strange, issue number 8. I like this cover because obviously Clea's there. She is wearing the cloak, but the form behind her. I think that's
Yeah.
that's really the thing there. Okay, so this of course is written by Jared McKay, one of my favorite writers at Marvel, with art by Marcelo Ferreira, who's the main interior artist. But this has a flashback story that's the majority of the comic, and they brought another artist, Stefano Landini, for the flashback story, which was really good as well. So in this, it's guest starring Pandora Peters, who is the director of Wand. So Wand is an offshoot of Shield, at least it used to be, and it stood for Wizardry, Alchemy, Necromancy Division. It's actually defunct now, but this character comes back into the story, and we get a flashback adventure of how Doctor Strange is it all connected with Wand, where basically Pandora and Wand come to him, begging him for help after having tried to bug his Sanctum Sanctorum,
Hmm.
which is funny because Strange makes him basically like beg for help, like
Yeah.
have to say really a really good apology. So we get a whole adventure with Doctor Strange and Pandora back in the Wand days. But during this flashback, we learn why Wand may have something to do with the formation of the Blasphemy Cartel. So that's sort of the interesting part there. And we also learn why Clea has a strong dislike of Pandora.
Mm.
So you'll have to read to find out those things. But that's what's in Strange issue number 8. And we have this Greg Land variant of that. Okay, so now we're going to go over all the DC books. We don't physically have them here yet. Our shipment was supposed to be here on the previous Wednesday.
Mm.
Here it is 5 days later. We're still waiting for it, but that's all right. We read the previews as much as we could. So over here.
Well, starting out, I didn't know what order these would be in, so let me check my notes. This is Blue Beetle Graduation Day #1. So this is a new miniseries starring Jaime Reyes, Blue Beetle. And I like this because it's a kind of a natural progression of the character. We've seen him when he was like in high school and everything. Well, Graduation Day, it is him in one way, like he is graduating high school, but also graduating to kind of the next tier of superhero. So this is written by a writer I'm not familiar with, Josh Trujillo, and the art is by Adrian Gutierrez. And there is a quick recap if you haven't read any Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle content. He is very different than the Ted Cord Blue Beetle. There's not a whole lot in common other than their kind of moniker. Um, but he is tracking a new villain called Fadeaway. And it seems like Fadeaway has like a teleportation power based on the cloak that they have, but it's like not Nightcrawler teleportation, it's like they fade out. So interesting. We don't know a whole lot about him. It's kind of just a villain that it's like we can jump in the middle of a fight right in the beginning to find our way. I don't know if the character's going to show up later on in the series because that whole ordeal is kind of taken care of. But he is late for his graduation, so you kind of get that like how Spider-Man's always like late for something. He's trying to switch his costume out, and he's coming up there the last second. What I will say is a lot of this book is in Spanish. Now, it is not enough that if you don't speak Spanish, you will be like not being able to tell what's going on. But like the parents speak to each other in Spanish, and I feel like if you're not fluent or even remotely familiar, you can tell what they're talking about just by their body language. He's late for graduation and they're concerned, where is he? Is he okay? That kind of thing. So if you can read it, great. You get the little extra, but if you can't, the issue is still completely readable. Um, but it seems like Jaime's life is so busy trying to balance school and being a superhero that he can't quite 100% do either of them. And that all comes to a head at his graduation party when who shows up at his graduation party but Superman. Superman is at Blue Beetle's graduation party, which does make it the coolest graduation party ever. And we learned that Superman does speak fluent Spanish, which I just would imagine he would. Just
It's
why not?
super linguist powers.
Yeah, yeah. He actually talks to Jaime's mom about that Clark is married and how great his wife is and all that. It's very funny. Um, but Superman basically informs him like, "You're grounded. Uh, you can't balance both these things. This isn't like me being mean about it. This is being like, you need to focus on you, and we can take care of the superhero stuff. But is that going to last? No, because it seems like a mysterious figure has shown up, wreaking havoc somewhere. We're not quite sure where. And they strongly resemble another Beetle themed character. Um, should I say what it? I mean, it's
Talking about the yellow character.
yes. There's a
It,
yellow character that's like a beetle. And I
it's
may
their
have just
first cameo.
first cameo, it is a full page cameo, but it's kind of a last page reveal, so it's not that no lines are spoken or anything, so I would consider it a cameo. But I thought this was a really fun issue. Um, I like the kind of teen superheroes that are a little bit fumbly. They don't have everything together, but highly recommend it if you have never read this character. He is still slated to get his own movie coming up.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah,
that one
yeah.
has not been canceled,
Right.
and we've seen set pictures of how good his suit looks. Like it's identical to the comics. So if you want a kind of a refresher on who this character is, I love this one. So definitely check out Blue Beetle Graduation Day #1. And then we have, I believe this is going to use my art knowledge of just looking at it. I believe this is a Cully Hamner variant.
Okay, so next up we have DC's Grifter got ran over by a reindeer. So this is an 80-page, 8-story winter anthology by DC. So 8 different stories by different creative teams. The preview I read of it, because it was so long, it only had the first 4 stories. So I'll give you a sampling of what the first 4 stories are about. I'm sure it's 9.99. These tend to
Yeah.
be 9.99. So the first story, which was my favorite, it was Frankenstein, Agent of Shade, teams up with a snowman who's been brought to life and is having like an existential crisis, and so the team of them, or they team up in search of Frankenstein's missing heart. He discovers he's missing his heart. And so they go to all these other heroes and people to get help who all owe Frankenstein favors. So they form this team that includes Superman, Nightwing, Plush, Constantine, Aquaman, Gorilla Grodd, Mary Marvel, and Batmite as they're trying to find Frankenstein's heart. And I won't tell you all the ins and outs, but I have to tell you who the main villain is. The main villain is the demonic spirit of Ebenezer Scrooge. So, I mean,
It
it was
is
just a
fantastic.
great story right there. That was easily my favorite of the
I
4.
think you sold it to me because Frankenstein is like one of my favorite DC characters. I love Agent of Shade and everything.
They do a good job with
And just the
this.
like that spooky horror that he's always involved with, and
Mhm.
now with that ghost and everything, yeah, that's a must get.
Yeah, so I have less to say on the other story. That one I was like, that's probably
Why
all I
do
need to talk
not
about.
explain that?
So then there's an Animal Man story. He is actually, it's a little bit sad. He's on a quest to deal with the death of his son, which leads him to appreciate the family that he still
Mhm.
has. The third story, it's a Hawkman, Hawkgirl story. They go on a Christmas adventure, some on Earth, some on the planet that they're from. And then the fourth story is Grifter gets fired from Halo on Christmas Eve, rightfully fired, okay, because of what he's doing. And he decides he's going to crash the parties of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. They all have different parties. He's crashing all of them to steal stuff he wants from them. And yes, he does get run over in that story. That was my second favorite one. So, I think DC's really gotten good at these anthologies. I think like the teams maybe in the initial ones were like, what do I do? I only got so many pages. And now I think they get to read the previous ones and go, oh, I see. We're all just like having fun.
Yeah.
This is like writing a Deadpool comic,
Yeah.
but it's not. a
Yeah.
Deadpool comic. So anyway, that is DC Grifters got ran over by a reindeer, and then
There's no
no
variant.
variant. That's right, no variant.
Yeah. How dare Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman have parties on the same night? What is like Green Lantern supposed to do? He's like, does he just make a visit to
Well,
each one of them?
it's like their families' parties.
Okay,
You
it's
know what
not
I
like
mean?
the Justice League party and they
No,
all had
no, no,
separate
no.
Justice League parties.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up is a pretty big one. This is Superman Kal-El Returns Special Number 1. This is kind of the culmination of all of the return of Kal-El that has been going back and forth between Action Comics and Son of Kal-El. And in this, it's really more about Superman catching up with everybody that that has kind of missed him since he's been gone on Warworld. And I feel like the him catching up and all of that has been just as long as like his all his Warworld stuff.
Really.
But it's really fun. So we do know that like this is a little bit of a sampling of Superman to come because we're getting a bunch of new Superman stuff coming up next year. But it's multiple stories by different creative teams. The first one was a lot of fun. This is by Mark Waid, who's your Batman Superman World's Finest writer, with art by Clayton Henry. And this one, this one's probably my favorite, but it's just the one that we were laughing about because it starts off with Batman. Of course, you've got a Superman special, and the first character you see is Batman. But Batman is dealing with some kind of like strange gas outbreak in Gotham that makes people riot, um, and it has something to do with like art and music and all of that. And Superman comes in to help, and you kind of get to see that moment of like Batman and Superman catching up after so long. They have a nice bro hug and do adventure together. The villain in this is really cool because it is Mr. Nobody, who is a Doom Patrol villain from the 80s Doom Patrol series. It's very kooky, he has some very strange powers, even kind of morphs Batman and Superman a little bit. But the best part of it is uh, Bruce Wayne, since he doesn't live in Wayne Manor anymore, he actually has like a almost like a brownstone apartment. Decides to make breakfast for Clark, and I have written uh, what is the household appliance Batman doesn't know how to work? You'll find that out in here. That's what's going to make this a collector's item is you finally learn what can't Batman operate. Uh, then we have a Jimmy Olsen story by Sina Grace and Michael Avon Oming, with Superman kind of catching up with Jimmy Olsen and all the crazy adventures Jimmy Olsen gets up to. We have a Clark and Lois go on a second honeymoon, uh, but meanwhile, in the city, uh, Jonathan has to. He thinks he has the perfect way of catching Lex Luthor in the act of basically that would show everybody that he's a supervillain. That's a really fun one. It's a little bit more serious. Then we have that one is by Marv Wolfman and art is by Jack Herbert. We have a story by Alex Seguera and Foco Osio, which is a sweet story where basically Superman comes back to the Justice League and the kind of Justice League museum and basically has lunch with Naomi and a couple other Justice League members and reminisce about Justice League stuff. And he shows her like Wednesday's old ripped costume, and you even see that maybe the story JLA Tower of Babel happened because there's a poster there of the cover of the comic. It's very weird. Um, but the big thing about this one is this story is the one that leads into Dark Crisis. So where was Superman when we saw Dark Crisis take him away? That is revealed in this one. So it's a bunch of just fun little stories celebrating Kal-El, Superman, and kind of what he means to Earth. So I really liked it. It's, doesn't really set up too much of like what's to come with the Superman stuff, but it's just a nice bit of Superman story. So this is our A cover for that. Then we have, I believe this is your artist from Son of Kal-El. Then we have the Spawn variant. I believe this is a Dan Mora Spawn variant, which is super cool.
Is this the first Spawn DC
I think it
one
is.
to
Yeah.
to actually reach? I mean, we've been ordering them for so
Yeah,
long.
I know it feels like they've been coming out forever. We haven't got
Yeah.
any of them.
Okay, so next up, I read Nightwing 2022 Annual. If you're reading Nightwing, you want to read this. This is a good book. It's got 3 stories in it. You know, annuals give them a chance to do things kind of outside the plot line. What they do with this one, they have 3 different tales. The first one is Heartless's origin story. That
Hmm.
was my favorite. So Heartless is this villain that Tom Taylor's been building up for a long time. He steals people's hearts. Why does he do it? Who is he? Where does he come from? I have to say, you get his full origin here, along with the origin of sort of like his butler, mentor, sort of father figure. And it turns out that he is more entwined, his history is more entwined with Dick Grayson than you would expect,
Hmm.
making him an even bigger villain. You know, the more you entwine your villain with the hero, the more you're building them up.
Well, I did read this other day. Well, it's really twisted. It's a
Yeah.
very twisted story.
Heartless is not a nice person. You know, you kind of wonder, oh, maybe he has like some good in him. No,
Bits of this that are kind of hard to read.
messed up to the core.
Yeah.
And with someone who's been kind of enabling it too.
Yeah.
So really, you know, a lot of times if you're a villain, you're at least alone. He's not even alone.
Yeah.
So anyway, great story on Heartless. The second story is a story about Haley, also known as Nightwing, and it's sort of like a story of what's in her imagination when Dick Grayson's gone. And she has this great imaginatory story of how she saves Nightwing and Batgirl and all of Bloodhaven. You just have to read that story; it'll put a big smile on your face. The last story is where John Kent comes to Nightwing and asks him to help with some training because he has to learn how to hold back his powers because he doesn't want to hurt people he doesn't intend to. And so you get a really good training story between them. So excellent annual. I don't know why, if you're reading Nightwing, you would not want to pick this up.
Hmm.
But really cool. This series just continues to go on and be awesome. And here is the variant. This is the Redondo variant. Of course, Bruno Redondo does all the interior art. This is sort of his heartless. What kind of variant?
Design
Yeah, the
variant.
design variant. That's all I was looking for.
Okay, the next up we have Wildstorm 30th anniversary special. So this week is a lot of like specials and annuals, and it's kind of one of those bonus weeks.
Yeah.
I do love to cover this. They did Wildstorm in the classic Wildstorm colors and everything. So this is interesting because you would think with a Wildstorm 30th anniversary special, it would kind of go back to the days of Wildstorm. But really, what this does is cements Wildstorm in the current DC universe, which I thought was really cool. It's not, reminiscing about how it was. It's like, no, these characters are here now and they have a big effect on stuff going on. So, like the other one, we do have multiple stories. We have one by Matthew Rosenberg, who writes a few of these. The art is by Jeff Spokes about Michael Cray, who is Deathblow, Jim Lee's original created Deathblow. But he gets a new origin and kind of a new ability. He's this time Deathblow is a soldier, but his abilities and consciousness get put in other people, and he's in them for a while, and they're kind of a little bit of a split personality, but he kind of keeps the memories of the people as he moves on to other ones. It's very interesting. It's kind of a new definition of that character. We have a Grifter story. Um, that's just really fun. I mean, it's Grifter. It's just him being kind of a jerk, but lovable. Um, we have one that I think is one of the key issues in this. One of the key stories is by Greg Pak, and it is about a new character called City Boy and Jack Hawksmoor, who is an old Wildstorm character. He's kind of like I don't know. He's one of the really powerful ones that involves like his ability to his relationship with cities. It's very complicated, but they you make you understand it. Um, but City Boy is a new kind of street urchiny type character. He's going through the city, but Jack Hawksmoor finds out that this kid can actually somehow communicate and manipulate cities, so he can like phase out and phase somewhere else in them and everything. It's very interesting. I think people should definitely read that one. Also because City Boy, we've actually seen, is going to appear in Lazarus Planet, the event. He's on the cover of, let's see, Lazarus Planet Legends Reborn. He's like a kid. He's got like a baseball cap on and a mask that has like a blue, almost like a scarecrow mouth type thing on it. But it looks like he's going to be in a couple of that stuff coming up. So this is the first appearance of what DC is setting up to be a character that we already know they have plans for. He's already going to appear and stuff. So that's pretty awesome. We have a Skywatch story, but you don't know Skywatch. They're kind of the shield or the sword of the DC universe, and it's a Director Bones story. But there is a surprise appearance from a Batman character that we haven't seen in a little while, and it has the first appearance of a Ukrainian superhero named Thor that we don't see a whole lot about, but it is a first appearance. And then we have a Apollo and Midnighter story, and finally we have a story with Angel Breaker, which she really gets around to the different books. Her and Zealot, and this story is by Joshua Williamson and John Boy Myers. So really cool, and it sounds like from the ending of that one, it's setting up some pretty big stuff. They have plans on maybe going after some key members of the JLA and even villains for some kind of plan. So really cool issue. And if you like the Wildstorm characters, this will kind of get you caught up to what's their place in the DC universe.
Some good variants too.
Yeah, so this is I believe Jim Lee a cover. Then we have this variant.
It's Sozamaka.
Yes. We have this Brian Hitch Authority cover.
Yep.
We have this
Joshua Middleton.
Middleton, yep. Mm-hmm. And then J. Scott Campbell.
Oh, yes.
With Fairchild Gen 13 cover. And then we have the Libra Mayho Deathblow cover. Very cool. Okay. There we go.
So, also releasing this week is Detective Comics Annual 2022. I was not able to get a preview copy of this, so I don't know what's in it. But there is something noteworthy to this. It doesn't have a variant. I think this is the first Detective Comics anything I have seen in the last like 10 years that doesn't have a variant. So just the one cover, but I don't know what's in this one. Just want to let people know that it's also out this week.
As well as a book that I've been very excited to read, and I'm very upset I've not been able to read it yet. It's Justice Society of America, #1. We kind of know what this is about just based off of how the New Golden Age ended, and some of the solicitations about Huntress needs the help of the JSA, so she actually travels into I don't know if it's the future, another reality, or whatever, but she discovers that maybe the JSA is not the one she remembers. So I'm very excited about this, but we did not get a chance to read it. So
Jeff Johns writing characters he likes to write, Golden Age characters, but in modern way.
Yes. And then we have this awesome Nolan Scott variant and the embossed 90s foil variant.
I was really hoping to have this to physically check it out today. Okay, so there's one other I forgot to put on here I want to mention. Nubia and the Justice League Special One Shot is also out. So this is in celebration of the 50th anniversary of Nubia. And the solicitation said, "Will Nubia joins the Justice League?" Well, I got to read a preview of this, and Nubia, she's waiting to meet with Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman's really late, so she ends up going out on an adventure with Black Canary and Green Arrow, who just love her. They just can't stop talking about how awesome Nubia punches someone, and so then Black Adam and Martian Manhunter have something go on. Well, she goes out with them. They go on an adventure. They think she's awesome. It basically boils down to everyone begging her to join the Justice League. Now, will she join? Will she not join? Will it be for real? Will it be honorary? You'll have to read it yourself. But I read it, and that's generally what it is about. It's really in honor of Nubia's 50th anniversary. So that is it for today. So thank you for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. That way you won't miss any of our upcoming videos where we do these early reviews, be the first to learn about first appearances and what's going on in these books. Every Friday we do comics from the future, so you don't want to miss that. So definitely subscribe, and we will see you this Friday on Comics from the Future. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.